everyone. Today's lecture is going to be on manufacturing accounts. Before we get into the manufacturing account itself, we're going to discuss the types of businesses. Now, the types of businesses that you've studied so far must be the retail businesses, where goods are purchased for resale and sold off. Now, the service business, इसमें आपका product physically present नहीं होता. It is an intangible product. And जो आपके manufacturing or production businesses हैं, they could primarily produce the product, or they may also, in the end, resell them. So they act as both a manufacturer and retailer. So we draft up a manufacturing account when we are dealing with the manufacturing or production businesses. Now, there are three types of inventories that you should know of. First of all is the input, raw material inventory. Then we have the semi-finished goods, which is your work in progress inventory. And we have the output, which we call the finished goods inventory. I recommend you memorize these three because they're going to be essential in your manufacturing account as well as your statement of financial position. And there's going to be a difference that you need to know of for your statement of profit and loss as well. Now, let's discuss the types of costs. When drafting up a manufacturing account, we're going to be dealing with two types of costs, your direct costs and your indirect costs. Direct costs are those that are traceable to a single unit of product, whereas your indirect costs are non-traceable. अब डायरेक्ट कॉस्ट में आपकी डायरेक्ट लेबर आ सकती है, आपका जो रॉ मटेरियल इस्तेमाल हुआ है प्रोडक्शन में वो आ सकता है, एंड इनडायरेक्ट कॉस्ट जो है that's the factory supervision, your machine depreciation, or it could be your electricity bill. Now, when we're dealing with direct costs, we also need to know what our prime costs are. Our prime costs are basically the cost of all the raw material consumed and any other direct costs involved. So basically, prime cost is another name for total direct costs. Then you have the manufacturing or the production cost, which involves your prime cost and your indirect cost. So it's basically like the overall manufacturing cost of your product. तो इसमें सारे आपकी direct cost भी आ जाती हैं, आपकी indirect cost भी आ जाती हैं. Now, the next that you should know of is your different types of wages. You have to identify which wages are direct, indirect. So when we talk about wages and salaries, these are your direct costs. How do we know these are direct costs? The trick to remembering this would be कि आपके wages जो है, that's rent first, right? So when wages is rent first, we know wages एक weekly pay होती है, and हम weekly pay देते हैं to repetitive work or to hard labor. So आपकी hard labor manufacturing में involve होती है, ठीक है? Then you have your factory wages. This is also traceable to your production. Then you have your manufacturing wages, same as that. Wages of labor, again, these are traceable. Then you have factory supervisor salary, ठीक है? आपकी जो factory supervisor salary है, supervision हो रही है, आपका ये product नहीं बन रहा. तो supervision जो है, that's an indirect cost. तो आपने factory supervisor salary को indirect cost में include करना है. Okay, and आपकी indirect labor wages, I have not written that here. आपके indirect labor wages हैं, those are also going to be in your indirect labor section. And आपकी फिर जो salaries and wages, अब wages and salaries and wages are two very different things. You guys need to know this, ठीक है? This is why मैंने पहले ये mention किया है कि इसका जो इसका first word है वो wages है, right? जो salaries and wages है, इसका first word है salary. So it represents a monthly payment or an annual payment. And हम monthly and annual payment अपने administrative expenses में include करते हैं, and your administrative expenses are accounted for in your statement of profit and loss. Okay, next up we have in manufacturing account. This is really easy, ठीक है? आपने बस ये format रखना है and that's it. बाकी आपको अगर ये जो मैंने ऊपर चीजें बताई हैं, ये अगर आपको याद हो गई, अगर इनके clear concept है, तो ये आप बहुत easily कर सकते हो, ठीक है? Okay, first off, you have the opening inventory of raw material. This is basically any raw material inventory you already have in your possession. And then purchases of raw material. ठीक है, इसमें basically any new raw material you've bought in, you're going to record that. Then carriage inwards of raw material. And then closing inventory of raw material, any inventory left at the end of the year, इस सब का टोटल करके आपने कॉस्ट ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल कंज्यूम निकाल लेना है. Okay, next we have our direct expenses. आपके जितने भी direct expenses आएंगे, okay, you just have to jot those down, add them up, and then आपके पास जो value आएगी, this value and this value, you have to add this up and you'll get your prime cost. Like I mentioned here, your prime cost is your cost of raw material consumed and your direct cost. Okay, next we have our factory overheads. These are our indirect costs. Like I mentioned before, your rent, your electricity bill, or your supervision salary, आपकी depreciation, वो सारी आपकी इधर आ जाएंगी. ठीक है, you have to add those up. Total आ जाएगा, and then जो आपकी prime costs है, those are going to be added with your factory overheads to get your manufacturing cost or your cost of production. Then you have your opening inventory of work in progress. आपकी last accounting period में जितने भी products बन रहे थे, but you couldn't finish them, those products, उनकी opening inventory आ जाएगी. And then you have your closing inventory of work in progress, which is basically आपकी इस accounting period के end पे कितने products in process हैं अभी बनने के. You're going to add and subtract these, ठीक है, and you're going to finally get your cost of production transferred to your income statement. ओके, जो आपकी कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन ट्रांसफर टू इनकम स्टेटमेंट है, आपके इनकम स्टेटमेंट में और स्टेटमेंट ऑफ प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस, इसमें बहुत स्लाइट सा डिफरेंस है दैट यू नीड टू नो ऑफ. ओके, आपका सारा फॉर्मेट वही होगा, सेम टू सेम, बस इसमें ये होगा कि ऑल द कॉस्ट दैट यू ऑलरेडी अकाउंटेड फॉर इन द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग अकाउंट, वो आप एक्सपेंसेस में नहीं रिकॉर्ड करोगे. एंड जो आपके कॉस्ट ऑफ गुड्स सोल्ड है ना, इसमें थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस आ जाएगा. इसमें आपके बेसिकली सबसे पहले तो आएगी ओपनिंग इन्वेंट्री ऑफ फिनिश्ड गुड्स. और अगर आपने थ्रू द ईयर कोई भी परचेजेस ऑफ फिनिश्ड गुड किए हैं, बिकॉज if you're like a manufacturing account who is also selling their products and acting out as retailers, इन दैट केस आपके पास अगर कम होगी ना अपने प्रोडक्ट्स या किसी भी सब्स्टिट्यूट प्रोडक्ट को रीसेल कर सकते हो. सो इन दैट केस आप अपने फिनिश गुड्स को परचेज भी कर सकते हो. सो दोज वुड आल्सो बी एडेड, एंड देन यू आर गोइंग टू ऐड योर प्रोडक्शन कॉस्ट. बाय द वे, परचेजेस कंपल्सरी नहीं है कि लिखी होंगी या नहीं, आपको प्रोवाइड होंगी या नहीं, बट प्रोडक्शन कॉस्ट आपने ज़रूर ऐड करनी है. एंड जो आपकी प्रोडक्शन कॉस्ट है, इट्स दिस वन that we just did, ठीक है, जो हमने भी निकाली है. Okay, your production cost, and then you have your closing inventory. Sorry. Oh, by the way, do not make the mistake of adding your carriage inwards a second time. क्योंकि carriage inwards जो आपके accounted for है, unless it's carriage inwards for the purchases of the finished goods, तो आपने फिर add कर सकते हो. पर अगर आपकी जो carriage inwards है, that is mentioned, and आपने कोई purchase of finished goods नहीं की, तो वो carriage inwards जो है ना, वो आपकी raw material की है. So you don't have to account for that because वो हमने manufacturing account में already देख ली है. Okay, next up we have our statement of financial position. इसमें सिर्फ एक छोटा सा change आपको पता होना चाहिए besides the normal format. आपकी जो current assets हैं, उसमें जो inventory का section होगा, उसमें you have to mention the raw material, your work in progress, and your finished goods. ये तीनों को आपने इंक्लूड करना है. इन तीनों के क्लोजिंग बैलेंसेस आएंगे आपके करंट एसेट के अंदर when you record inventory. Besides that, the entire format is the exact same. I hope सबका concept clear हो गया है. If not, you can DM me on Instagram and I can explain it a million times over.